Chapter 7, a little drum roll, grand finale. Hopefully you've made your predictions. On the night of the pageant, we didn't have any supper because Mother forgot to fix it. My father said it was all right. Between Mrs. Armstrong's telephone calls and the pageant rehearsals, he didn't expect supper anymore. Well, it's all over, he said. When it's all over, he said, we'll go someplace and have hamburgers. But Mother said when it's all over, she might go somewhere and hide. We never once gone through the whole thing, he said. She said, I don't know what's going to happen. And maybe the first Christmas pageant in history where Joseph and the wise men get in a fight, and Mary runs away with the baby. She might be right, I thought, and I wondered what all of us in the angel choir ought to do in the case that happens. It would be dumb for us to just stand there singing about the holy infant if Mary had run off with him. But nothing seemed very different at first. There was the usual big mess all over the place. Baby angels getting poked in the eyes by other baby angels' wings and grumpy shepherds stumbling over their bathrobes. The spotlight swooped back and forth and up and down till it made you sick at your stomach to look at it, as usual. Whoever was playing the piano pitched away in a manger so high that we could hardly hear it, let alone sing it. My father says Ways in Manger always starts out something like a closet full of mice. That means it's too high pitched. But everything settled down, and at 7:30 the pageant began. While we sang Away in a Manger, away in a manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus, you know it. The ushers lit the candles all around the church, and the spotlight came on to be the star. So you really had to know the words to Away in a Manger because you couldn't see anything, not even Alice Wendelkin's Vaselined eyelids. After that, we sang 2 verses of O Little Town of Bethlehem, and we were supposed to hum some more O Little Town of Bethlehem while Mary and Joseph came in from the side door. Only they didn't come right away. Oh no, I wonder if they're not going to come at all. So we hummed, and we hummed, and we hummed, which is boring and also very hard, and before long it doesn't sound like any song at all, more like an old refrigerator. I knew something like this would happen, Alice Wendelkin whispered at me. They didn't come at all. We wouldn't have any Mary and Joseph, and now what were we supposed to do? I guess we would have gone on humming till we all turned blue. But we didn't have to. Ralph and Imogen were there all right. Only for once, they didn't come through the door pushing each other out of the way. They just stood there for a minute, as if they weren't sure they were in the right place because of the candles. I guess the church being full of people. They looked like the people you'd see on the 6 o'clock news, refugees sent to wait in some strange, ugly place, with all their boxes and sacks around them. And suddenly it occurred to me that this was just the way it would have been for the real Holy Family. Stuck away in a barn by people who didn't much care what happened to them. They couldn't have been very neat and tidy either, but more like this, Mary and Joseph. So we wanted to have this Mary that was so beautiful and perfect and everything. In fact, in some religions, they believe that Mary was holy. But Imogen didn't look very holy. And our author here, Beth, that we don't even know her name yet, our author here, she's like, this probably was what it really was like. 70 miles would take you over a week, maybe 2 weeks to travel 70 miles with a pregnant woman. And they would have been traveling all this time on foot, not in a car. They probably looked wearied and beat down, just like Imogen. And Mary and Joseph, Imogen's veil was cockeyed, that means crooked as usual, and Ralph's hair stuck out all over his eyes. Imogen had the baby doll, but she wasn't carrying it the way she was supposed to, cradled in her arms. She had it slung up over her shoulder, and before she put it in the manger, she thumped it twice on the back. Now, do you know what you thump a baby on the back for? Well, let's find out. I heard Alice gasp, and she poked me. I don't think it's very nice to burp the baby Jesus, she whispered, as if he had colic. Then she poked me again. Do you suppose he had colic? Now even Alice is starting to wonder if Imogen isn't doing a better job being Mary. You know, we have baby Jesus in our mind like he's this perfect little baby, but you know what? He was still a human, and he probably still had to burp. It's not a sin to burp. I mean, if you do it out loud on purpose, it's kind of bad manners. But a baby can't help that, and Jesus would have probably had to be burped. And nobody in the whole history of the world has thought to burp the baby at a Christmas pageant, but Imogen did. Maybe we're on to something. Maybe this will be the worst, no, best Christmas pageant ever. I said, I don't know why not, and I didn't. He could have had colic, or been fussy, or hungry, like any other baby. After all, that's the whole point of Jesus, that he didn't come down on a cloud like something out of Amazing Comics, but that he was born and lived a real person. Right away, we had to sing while shepherds watched their flocks at night. And we had to sing very loud because there were more shepherds than there were anything else, and they made so much noise, banging their crocks, that's a shepherd cane with a hook on top, around like a lot of hockey sticks. Next came Gladys from behind the angel choir, pushing people out of her way and stepping on everyone's feet. Since Gladys was the only one in the pageant who had anything to say, she made the most of it. Hey! Unto you a child is born, she hollered, as if it was for sure the best news in the world. And it is the best news in the world. And all the shepherds trembled, sore afraid of Gladys mainly, but it looked good anyways. Now remember, when the angels came and they appeared in the sky, the shepherds shook with fear. For real, they did. And these shepherds were kind of shaking in fear because of Gladys, but it looked like what would have happened the real night. Boy, this might be the best Christmas pageant ever. Then came 3 carols about angels. It took that long to get the angels in because they were all primary kids, and they got nervous and cried and forgot where they were supposed to go and bent their wings in the door and things like that. We got a little rest then while the boys sang "We 3 Kings of Orient are," and everybody in the audience shifted around to watch the wise men march up the aisle. What have they got? Alice whispered. I don't know, but whatever it is, it was heavy. Leroy almost dropped it. He didn't have his frankincense jar either. Uh-oh. And Claude and Ollie didn't have anything. Oh, they were supposed to bring gold and myrrh. I knew this would happen, Alice said for the second time. I bet it's something awful. Like what? Like a burnt offering, you know? You know the herdmen's. Well, I hope it's not a cat in a bag. Well, they did burn things, but they hadn't burned this yet. It was a ham. And right away I knew where it came from. My father was on the Church Charity Works Committee. They gave away food baskets at Christmas, and this was the herdman's food basket ham. Now, if you were really poor, and you didn't have a dad, and you didn't have a mom that cared that much, and somebody brought you a food basket, and there was some meat in it like ham, you probably wouldn't go giving it away. And, the Herdmans didn't have much, but they gave all they had? What? It still had the ribbon around it saying Merry Christmas. I'll bet they stole it, Alice said. They did not. It came from their food basket. And if they want to give away their own ham, I guess they can do it. But even if the Herdmans didn't like ham, that was Alice's next idea, they had never before in their lives given anything away except for lumps on the head. So you had to be impressed. Leroy dropped the ham in front of the manger. It looked funny to see a ham there instead of the fancy bath salt jars that we used for the myrrh and frankincense. And then they went and sat down in the only space that was left. While we sang, What Child Is This? The wise men were supposed to confer among themselves and then leave by a different door so everyone would understand that they were going home another way. But the Herdmans forgot, or they didn't want to, or something, because they didn't confer. That means they didn't talk to each other, confer, and they didn't leave either. They just sat there, and there wasn't anything anyone could do. They're ruining the whole thing, Alice whispered. But they weren't at all. As a matter of fact, it made perfect sense for the wise men to sit down and rest. And I said so. They're supposed to have come a long ways. You wouldn't expect them to just show up, hand over the ham, and leave. As for ruining the whole thing, it seemed to me that the Herdmans had improved the pageant a lot, just by doing what came naturally. Like burping the baby, for instance, or thinking a ham would make a better present than a lot of perfumed oil. Usually by this time we got to Silent Night, which was always the last carol. I was fed up with the whole thing, and I couldn't wait for it to be over. But I didn't feel that way this time. I almost wished for the pageant to go on, with the Herdmans in charge, to see what else they would do that was different. Maybe the wise men would tell Mary about their problem with Herod, and she would tell them to go back and lie their heads off. Or Joseph might go with them to get rid of Herod once and for all. Or Joseph and Mary might ask the wise men to take the Christ child with them, figuring that no one would think to look there. I was so busy planning new ways to save the baby Jesus that I missed the beginning of Silent Night. But it was all right, because everyone sang Silent Night, including the audience. We sang all the verses too, and when we got to Son of God, Love's Pure Light, I happened to look at Imogene, and I almost dropped my hymn book on the baby angel. Everyone had been waiting all this time for the Herdmans to do something absolutely unexpected. And sure enough, that was what happened. Imogene Herdman was crying. And now, guys, I know that there's a lot of things in this book that I wish they wouldn't have put in, like smoking cigars in the ladies' room, or lying, or stealing, or bonking each other on the head, or any of those bad things that bad people do. But you know what? Jesus actually hung out with bad people. He came to save the sins of sinful people, tax collectors and prostitutes and terrible sinners and Roman soldiers and you and me. And here Imogene is getting the first chance to hear the Christmas story. And what's it doing? It's melting her heart. This angry, mean child is crying, and not crying tears of sadness, but crying tears of joy that this Jesus is her Savior. In the candlelight, her face was all shiny with tears, and she didn't even bother to wipe them away. She sat there, awful old Imogene, with her crookedy veil, crying and crying and crying. Well, it was the best Christmas pageant we've ever had. Everybody said so. Nobody seemed to know why. When it was over, people just stood around the lobby of the church talking about all the things that were different this year. There was something special, everyone said. They couldn't put their finger on what. Mrs. Wellington said, well, Mary, the mother of Jesus, had a black eye. That was something special. But only what you might expect, she added. Oh, she's so nasty. She meant that it was the most natural thing. It was meant that the most natural thing in the world for the Herdman to have a black eye. But actually, nobody hit Imogene. And she didn't hit anyone else. Her eye wasn't really black either. It was just all puffy and swollen. She had walked into the corner of the choir robe cabinet in a kind of daze, as she had just caught on to the idea of God and the wonder of Christmas. And this was the funny thing about it all. For years I thought about the wonder of Christmas and the mystery of Jesus' birth and never really understood it. But now, because of the Herdmans, it didn't seem so mysterious after all. When Imogene had asked me what the pageant was about, I told her it was about Jesus. But that was just a part of it. It was about a new baby and his mother and father who were in a lot of trouble. No money, no place to go, no doctor, nobody they knew. And then arriving from the east, like my uncle from New Jersey, some rich friends. I don't know if you guys have put this together in the past, though, but the wise men bringing these gifts would have really helped Mary and Joseph out, because Mary and Joseph were just about to leave and go hide in Egypt for a couple years till Herod died. They wouldn't have had the finances to do this, but these three wise men brought their gifts. But Imogene, I guess, didn't see it that way. Christmas just came over all at once, like a case of chills and fever, and so she was crying and walking into furniture. Afterwards, there was candy canes and little testaments for everyone, and a poinsettia plant for my mother from the whole Sunday school. We put the costumes away and folded up the collapsible manger, and just before we left, my father snuffed out the last of the tall white candles. I guess that's everything, he said as we stood at the back of church. All over now. It was quite a pageant. Then he looked at my mother. What's that you got? It's the ham, she said. They, meaning the Herdmans, wouldn't take it back. They wouldn't take any candy either, or any of the little Bibles. But Imogen did ask me for the set of Bible story pictures, and she took out the Mary picture and said it was exactly right, whatever that means. I think it means that no matter how she sees herself, Imogen liked the idea of the Mary in the picture, all pink and white and pure looking, as if she had never washed the dishes or cooked supper or did anything else except for have a Jesus on Christmas Eve. But as far as I'm concerned, Mary is always going to look a lot like Imogen Herdman, sort of nervous and bewildered, but ready to clobber anyone who laid their hands on her baby. And the wise men are always going to be Leroy and his brothers, bearing ham. When we came out of the church that night, it was cold and clear and crunchy snow underfoot and bright, bright stars overhead. And I thought about the angel of the Lord. The grand finale. I love the ending of this book. Gladys, with her skinny legs and her dirty sneakers sticking out from underneath her robe, yelling at the top of her lungs at all of us everywhere. Hey, unto you a child is born. All right. Like I said earlier, sorry about a couple of the parts in there. I wish I could take them out. I can't. But we decided that we'd read the story besides those and focus on the true meaning of Christmas, and that's Jesus. And that the Herdmans, sinful as they were, needed Jesus just as much as me and you need Jesus, and they put on a pretty good pageant about him. All right. Our last little quiz, and then we got a couple other assignments we're going to finish up today. What comparison is drawn between Mary and Joseph and Imogen and Ralph? They were also scared. They would have been about the same size. They were also loud and unruly. Their clothes were also untidy. Now don't pick that last one. That may have been true, but I think there's a better answer. Number 2. What was Gladys yelling as she entered the church? Yo! There is a baby Jesus here. Hey, unto us a child is born. Howdy, baby Jesus is coming to you. Greetings, unto you a baby Jesus is born. If you have to, look back on that last page of the book. Number 3, what were the wise men carrying? They had brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They had brought a burnt offering. They had brought donuts and cake. They had brought their food basket ham. Number 4. Why was this the best Christmas pageant ever? Herdman had made it special. Nothing went wrong during the pageant. All the angels knew their lines. The Herdman showed up on time. Okay, no backside on that one today. As promised, the story map, the characters of this story. Now, I think we need to only have a couple. And the first one I'm going to put on there is I. In parentheses, we found out her name was Beth from one of our worksheets, and we're going to call her the narrator. And then I think we got to have Mother. A lot of the story was about Mother. And we'll put by her is put on the Christmas pageant. And then I think we need to have Imogen. Now, I'm not sure how to spell her name, but her name is almost on every single page. Found it right here. I'm going to put down, played the part of Mary. And then I'm just going to put down other kids. And that's her brothers and sisters, what I'm thinking about. Had all the main parts. Now, if you wrote smaller than I did, and you can fit their names in there individually, you can look their names up and put them in there. Ollie and Gladys And you might want to put Alice Wendelkin in there. I don't know if you want to put Mrs. Armstrong in there. There was a lot of characters, but here was like the top 3, and then the other Herdmans here. Okay, now what was the setting story? Now, there was all sorts of settings. Of course, there was the kitchen where the applesauce cakes burned. There was the outside the doorbell of their house where Dad was trying to ding-dong to get in, get Mom off the phone. But I think the majority of the story took place on a stage in the church. So, in the church. Where the pageant was practiced and performed. Now maybe you want to put the girls' bathroom because that's where Imogene caused all those big problems with the ladies' aid. But the main portion of the story was all on the stage in the church. Okay, what was the problem? I think the problem, you can put whatever you want, but I'm going to put the Herdmans took over the Christmas pageant. And then I'm going to say a little bit more about them. These were the worst kids in town. And then what was the solution? I'm going to let you fill that one in yourself. I might say the solution was the Herdmans made the Christmas pageant better than it ever had been in the past by just doing what was natural. Just doing what was natural. Yeah, your name's on the front of that paper. I left you a couple blank the other day. I filled mine in. Now you can fill yours in. So now you got 2 things. When you're done with this, if you're not done, pause the video, and this, those go back into your Thursday folder. Now you had one more in there. This is the one I can't wait to read, and I'm not going to help you on this one because I got my own ideas about this. It says, the best Christmas pageant ever. Do you like this story? Did you like it? I love this story. I know there's some parts in there that I don't really like and I wish they wouldn't have wrote, but I love this story, and I could explain why. Pure. A+ is if you make it all the way to the bottom of the page. Okay? Write in complete sentences. Capital letters, end marks. Some of you guys are turning in work that don't have capital letters, end marks. Sentences, sentence. Get your moms or your dads or your aunties or your uncles or grandmas or grandpas to proofread for you. But they got to be sentences. All right, this is about B work here. If you only get a half a page, it's C work. Some of you guys are putting 1 or 2 lines. This is where you get your D/F work. You can't not turn it in. That's obviously a 0. All right, so fill this page up. Did you like it? I love the story, the best Christmas pageant ever. It'd take me 2 lines just to write that. I have 3 reasons why I love this story. The first reason was because I love the story of... The second reason was because the Herdmans... The third reason was... And the final question, this was one of my favorite stories all year long so far. Okay? All right, back into your Thursday one. So there have been 3 reading assignments in there. One of them we had done each day. One of them was just the front side, and then that one. And then I sent this one home as extra credit. You do not have to do it. Feel free to throw it away for... Feel free to do it. Keep it at home. Feel free to do the whole thing. If you got to find them all, you are welcome to turn in for extra credit. I'm going to give you extra credit on your reading assignment. I'm not very good at these. Sometimes my wife can look at these and she's, oh, there it says angel, there it says shepherds, there's Jesus. If I'm going to try to find Jesus, it's going to look like this. Any J's, any J's? No, any J's, any J's? Any J-E? No, any J's? Here's a J. J-E? J-E-S? Oh, I found one. There it is. And so I just got to go up and down the rows looking for it. Now you might get them going across, up and down, or you might get them diagonal. I just found Mary too. All right, I'm not going to give you too many. If you find them all, then I'll give you extra credit on it. Just send it back with your packet. All right, guys, that wraps up reading for this year. I will see you for reading in 2021, January the 4th. God bless you.